The Toronto Maple Leafs have broken through and made it out of the first round for the first time in 19 years. Yes, dating back to 2004 was the last time that they made it through to the second round. Could this be the start of something magical for the people of Toronto? Welcome back to Edgework here on the Hammer Betting Network as we get underway with our second series preview of the second round. And for the first time in 19 years, the Toronto Maple Leafs will be playing in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, as you can imagine, pretty exciting one for myself to be able to sit here and do this preview with you guys as they go looking to face off against the Florida Panthers, who pulled off the biggest upset in NHL playoff history, facing off against the Boston Bruins in the first round. Biggest upset based on margin of points, at least, coming out of the regular season. We watched this Boston Bruins team have a historic regular season, breaking NHL records, and the Panthers team that just barely found their way into the playoffs takes them to 7 and wins in overtime there. And now we're looking at series prices for this Leafs team against Florida right now. Minus 176 for Toronto as 63.8% implied probability. So, Money, I'll go to you first on this one. I know that the Leafs have been something that you've been betting along the way here, some futures bets that you've placed on them. Now, obviously, you might look at this one a little bit differently in terms of betting series prices or playing them on a game-to-game basis, considering having the futures there with you, because technically with those, you kind of are betting them on a game-to-game basis at this point now as well. But looking at the overall series price, minus 176 on the Leafs, did you feel like this was kind of where it should be? Where was it a little bit short, long? Like, what was your initial thoughts on the opening price in this series?
I actually felt it was a little bit long. I was hoping for a shorter price on the Leafs. So I would, yeah. So I didn't like anything there. But just looking at this series, it's going to be. I think the Leafs will win, of course. But and Alex loves that too. But I think it could be tricky for them, right? And I'm sure we'll get into this more. But in terms of the series price, I didn't have anything for them.
Yeah, Moretto, what were your thoughts on the price that came out? It opened at 165. It was one of the earlier prices that came out on some of the different books, and now it's moved down to 176. Is that kind of accurate? Was it were you in the same mindset as So Money there?
Well, if you ask Leafs Nation, I think there's no price too short to back this team right now, right? Because it's written in the stars. So minus 400 maybe would have been a bit more accurate. But yeah, I think that this price is about fair. And you look at, there's people that are saying that it's a bit surprising that it's kind of right around where it was against the Lightning. Well, I think what we've seen is the market sort of correct a little bit on Florida. Maybe that Florida isn't, as bad as not bad, but isn't, is better than we thought they were coming into the first round. And Boston maybe wasn't as good. And the Leafs, all due respect to them, you win any way you can in the playoffs, but they did not look great in the first round. So, I think that we're not necessarily upgrading them for winning that series. They were expected to win the series. They won the series, didn't look great doing so. So yeah, I think the price is about fair, despite what maybe you could have been expecting just based on where these two teams sit in the standings and sort of like their reputation coming into the series.
Well, I'll ask you guys a little bit about that, and you kind of mentioned upgrading the Leafs. Okay, you're not going to do that based on what we've seen. I think that that's completely fair. You're right. They were outplayed in that series, really, other than essentially game 2 from start to finish in a game. But looking at kind of the Panthers coming out of that series against the Bruins, massive underdogs there. They're going to be underdogs here again in this series, but do you kind of take what you saw from them in the first round and upgrade things around? Is there a way to do that just based on success? Is there a way to do it based on how they played? Like, what do you make of the first round series, carrying that over into the second round series, and what adjustments do you make, So Money?
So I want to preface this by saying that I'm really not taking anything away from Florida here. They won that series, and in the end, based on the last couple of games, they did deserve to win that series. But we go a little bit deeper here, and the way that this series was started, I thought that Boston was outplaying them. And it just goes to show that how small the margins are in playoff hockey. In game 5, on that breakaway, if Brad Marchand scores that goal, we're not even sitting here talking about Florida, right? It's all done. Instead, obviously go to game 6 and the wild game 6, game 7, right? So I'm not taking away anything from Florida, but we also need to take a step back a little bit and just consider that Boston, as that series went on, whether it was the injuries, whether whatever line juggling that Montgomery, which he like later said that he regretted doing, like whatever he was doing with that and their goaltending dipped, whether it was an injury or whatever it was, as that series progressed, those kind of things came to the forefront. And in the end, Florida was opportunistic enough to capitalize and win that series. Florida, in my opinion here, is also stepping up in class too, right? So I think that I don't think that Toronto is going to be as loose as Boston was as that series went on. I've mentioned before that Toronto is a very good defensive, like a structurally defensive team when they want to be, and so Florida is stepping up as well. And I have a clear path to a Leafs win here, but. And I know you love hearing that, Zach, but I said it last series as well. But it could get tricky if like playoff hockey and like the variance of playoff hockey comes into play as well.
Well, Moretto, do you make any downgrades on the Leafs from what you saw in the last series? Is there anything there, or is it kind of like, because I know you did say, okay, maybe you can't necessarily upgrade some of the stuff, but is there, okay, just keep it status quo, it is what it is in terms of how you look at them from last series going into this series and what we saw in the regular season? How do you kind of make adjustments for them going into this one?
Yeah, I mean, like, so money's right. The Leafs, by all accounts, have been a great defensive hockey team for a while now, but the defense looked bad in the first round. Like, whether that's small sample and it can be thrown out the window, or whether that's maybe a harbinger of things to come, I don't know. So it's you're not going to really downgrade them too much, but there are definitely like warning signs there. I think Samsonov masked a lot of those issues. We talked about how close, the fine margins and how close Florida was to potentially just being out in 5. I mean, kind of can be the same thing for this series, right? Where like Tampa has big opportunities to end game 3, can't quite finish them. O'Reilly ties the game late, and then even in overtime, Leafs didn't look great, found the way to get a puck through from the point. Same thing in game 4, that comeback after, Braden Point had hit the post too in the third period. It was just like a lot of things sort of went right for them. And then, in game 6 as well, the closeout game where they didn't look particularly great. Stamkos has that big chance early in overtime. So it could have been very different for them too. So it's, look, both teams were opportunistic to get here. Obviously, the Leafs are a better team. I do think they ultimately win this series, but there is a path to Florida winning here, and that, they can use their speed. They're a team that's been playing with that urgency for, about 3 months now, just to scrape and claw to make their way into the playoffs, because they were, by all accounts, a lottery team midway through January. They were bottom 4, bottom 3, bottom 4 in the East, and our Habs had their first round pick, so a little unfortunate to see how that played out. But they've been playing with that urgency for a while. They've got Matthew Tkachuk, who's playing as well as anyone right now. They've got that size up front, they've got that speed, and I think that that's one of the big areas that they'll have to look to exploit if they're going to have a chance in this series, is to play fast, because the Leafs aren't necessarily the fastest team. I think they're actually a little bit of a slow team. Kind of flying under the radar, but they definitely don't have the same legs as Florida does. Now, they also don't have the same high-end talent. Obviously, Chuck is great. Barkov's a very good player, very good two-way center, but the Leafs just have more of it. So, it's going to be a tighter series maybe than you were anticipating, but I do ultimately think that Florida's going to need the bounces to keep going their way if they're going to have a chance to actually win.
Wait, I just want to hear Moretto say again that the Leafs are the better team. I thought that was great.
I'm gonna recuse myself from saying anything.
No, I think Alex is right. Like the Leafs didn't look that great, but it's also hard to play when like each player has a 40-pound monkey on their back too, right? Like there was a lot of
Yeah.
things between their ears as well that kind of you could see it sometimes, right? So yeah, I think that I would anticipate the Leafs to be a lot looser, a lot more in tune with the way that they want to be playing this, to the way that they want to be playing their game.
Another big thing here too is that I think one of the things that was really working against the Leafs in round one and was kind of led to the fact that they had some pretty bad underlying numbers was the Keefe for Sheldon Cooper matchup.
Yeah.
Keefe gets a much easier matchup this time around in Paul Maurice.
Unless if it goes to game 7.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, say what you want about Paul Maurice sparking his team or whatever, to get them to where they are. But like Paul Maurice is not a very good hockey coach, and I think that he's one of the few that's kind of on the same level as Sheldon Keefe in these playoffs. So that'll work out well for Sheldon as he gets closer to getting a statue in Toronto.
I had no comments on that. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on the goalie matchup here in this one. Now, obviously Samsonov kind of took over the Leafs net down the stretch there and then made it his own. He struggled early in game 1, but started to figure things out the rest of the way and actually became a reason that the Leafs are actually able to win a couple of those games that you talked about there that they really didn't deserve to win. And in the other net, you're going to have Sergei Bobrovsky opening up this series for Florida. He didn't even start in game 1 in round 1 here, and he's been a guy who's been up and down, kind of making the whole double-digit goalie salary not look so great for teams looking around the league, looking at signing goalies to big contracts, but plays pretty well to close out that series, gives Florida an opportunity to beat Boston there and actually close that one out. I guess you can't really predict whether or not Bobrovsky is actually going to maintain that success, but if you're going to look at the goalie matchup here, is there either team that you could give an edge to here? So money, do you kind of rely on the veteran presence of Sergei Bobrovsky, a guy who's won series before, has been there, or do you think maybe the guy who's coming off a incredible series for Toronto in that last one against Tampa might be able to keep things going?
So not only do I give the edge to Samsonov, I give him a significant edge. Reason too is that Bobrovsky, I like Bobrovsky. He's got a soft spot in my heart ever since that Columbus Tampa Bay series. So I like him, but even you watch him last series and you look at his underlying metrics. He was okay, right? He was good enough to win. It wasn't anything special. We also have to view that in the context of Boston's goalie dip as well, right? So that kind of theoretically elevated Bobrovsky's game a bit as well.
Right.
I don't think we're going to see that dip from Samsonov. I'm very high on Samsonov. His my internal numbers on him look great. It has been looking great for most of the season, and when there are times I see that, okay, maybe he looks like he's headed towards a dip, the Leafs overall defensively are good enough to insulate him. So that's the reason I do give a definitive edge to Samsonov in this series.
Same page, Moretto, or maybe you don't want to admit it? What do you think?
No. I'm on the same page. I definitely think that's the case. The edge has to be given to Samsonov and the Leafs in net, but I do think that the volatility with both guys can also be high, which can, throw a wrench into this series when you're looking to. That's why when you're looking at like some of these bigger prices and like laying a -175 with the Leafs, it's a little bit tougher to do when there's that volatility there, right? Like Bobrovsky, we haven't seen the top of his game. We don't even know what the top of his game is necessarily anymore, what that ceiling is for him. But like, he does have the capability of going in and playing very good and giving them the above the baseline even that they need to potentially go and steal a series. And Samsonov, Samsonov obviously has the same thing. I would argue that Samsonov did steal the series against the Lightning, right? So he's obviously riding high. Confidence is there. But I do think that, he's got those bad goals in him too, and he's got some bad stretches, and he's, capable of playing down to to a level that could maybe put the Leafs in a bit of hot water in this series. So I just think, there is the edge definitely resides with the Leafs, but there is, volatility on both ends here.
All right. Let's get to our best bets in this series, and then we'll wrap up with our series predictions. So, I mean, Moretto, you talk about there, maybe you don't want to lay the minus 175 or 176 with the Leafs. Maybe that's something you find that one a little bit too expensive. What is another way that you might look to play this series? Is there a number that's jumping out to you? Props? Like, how would you look to go about this series?
I would probably play the Leafs minus 1.5. I think like plus 115 or something like that is a good number. I'm fine with that. I do think that there's a lot of outcomes where the Leafs win in 6 or less in this series. I think a lot of things have to go right for Florida to make this bet a loser. Obviously, it's the NHL playoffs, anything can happen. Of course, there is a path for them to have success here, but I think that it's, I don't think it's quite what the odds are implying here. So I do think, at least minus 1.5 is a good look. Total goals, if you can get like a total goals market at one point, I think we're going to see another high scoring series, like kind of similar to what we saw with Boston, Florida. I think this could turn into, and that's the other thing, right? Like Florida can pull the Leafs away from their style, at least good defensive structured hockey. I mean, Florida can sort of pull them out of that a little bit and get them to play a little bit more of like a run and gun style, which at least probably don't want to be a part of. But yeah, so like maybe that can lead to some more goals. We saw with the Kraken and Avalanche, like a 36.5 was the total goals in that series. I think maybe we'll see something sort of similar here based on what the series is lined at and what what we can expect to see on a game to game basis for totals. So if you can get like an over 35.5, 36.5 total goals in this series, that's something I'd look to bet too.
All right,
and so Money, what's a way that you would look to play this one?
I agree with Alex with his minus 1.5 look. I think that's where I'm looking as well. Another thing that stood out too was that I do think that this might. There's a path here where I think that this could be a shorter series for Toronto, but I also understand that it's never that easy. So I think that I'd be looking towards the under 5.5 games. You can get that at plus 150 or so. That's what it's, that number that is attractive to me. So I would be looking at that, the under 5.5.
All right, and finally we'll wrap this one up with series predictions. Moretto, start with you. Taking the betting aside, predictions: who wins, how many games?
I really hope Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett and Sergei Bobrovsky and our boys, our cats, can prove me wrong here. But I will go with the Leafs in 5, and we'll see if I'm around for the third round.
And so, Money, prediction for you?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a much looser Leafs team. I think that Florida is not going to see the same opportunities that they had against Boston as that series went on. I'm going with Leafs in 5 as well. Leaves in 5, sorry.
Leaves in 5. Yeah, I agree with you guys, especially in terms of the individual game-to-game basis. I definitely agree. Moretto, you talk about, hey, this could turn into a little bit of a track meet in some of the games where they kind of run up the score there. I could see that being a case. I would say that the Leafs would actually be very capable of playing in those situations with some of the high-end talent that they have. Yes, some of the speed stuff has kind of dropped off a little bit, but if you want to go toe-to-toe scoring-wise with Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, O'Reilly down the third line there, I think that they can handle that and they can play up to that. But I'm going to be in agreement with you guys here as well. Leafs in 5 for me in this one. You also have home ice. Home ice, Leafs in 5.
We just locked in that commentator's curse, baby. I love it. just flash all Leafs logos across the screen. That's what we just did.
I had to do it. I don't know what to say, guys. I had to do it. So that's my official pick in this one. Leafs in 5 as well. But yeah, I guess maybe that is a real thing, Moretto. It is.
You know when those pictures flash up on Twitter, like
I know what you're talking about.
There's like every single person. You didn't have your team's best interest at heart. You had to pick them. Fair enough. But, let's see. Hopefully we can clip this later and and it works.
Can I change my pick actually?
No, it's too late. We're done.
Well, it is what it is. If you enjoyed the show here, please make sure to like this video, subscribe here to the Edgework HQ YouTube channel, and as well, let us know in the comments below if you agree with our picks, what your best bets are. We're happy to hear those as well. Make sure to drop them below. And so money, Alex, thank you guys for taking the time to do this preview here today. Appreciate the insight and analysis as always. For everyone else out there, make sure to subscribe to this channel. You can turn on notifications. We will have more series previews coming out to help us tee up the rest of the second round in the 2023 NHL playoffs. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the second round, and good luck on your bets.